Greetings, fellow gorehounds, and welcome back to a Blood Splattered vlog. I'm the Horror Guru.
And I'm Count Jackula.
And today, I am going to talk about The Turning, the one of a couple Turn of the Screw adaptations that are going to be coming out this year, and by my estimation, probably the worst one. Obviously, we won't know until the Netflix adaptation comes out, but I'm hoping it's the worst one. My buddy Count Jackula has not seen the movie, but the movie was so bad, I figured he wouldn't want to, and that he would be just satisfied to hear me bitch about it to him.
Yeah. This is what we're going to do when one of us sees a movie and it's like, no, dude, don't.
No.
Don't.
Let me tell you about this.
All right, so let's get into some shit.
All right, so before we get to the spoilers, the turn of the screw, let me talk about me going into this movie. I saw the trailer for The Turning multiple times last year, like in front of almost every movie for about half a year. They were marketing the shit out of this movie for this January, this month. And I was like, okay, all right. I mean, it's a January movie. It's probably going to be either mediocre or bullshit because January's like that sometimes. But I'll see it. It looks like a spooky ghost story with some spider imagery, and I like that. I didn't realize until I sat down in front of the movie and the credits were rolling, not the end credits, but the opening credits, that it was supposed to be an adaptation of The Turn of the Screw. I should have put that together with the name The Turning,
yeah,
and some of the plot elements, but there was a lot of other plot elements that were presented in the trailer that spoke to something else.
Yeah, because the original, like, I caught on to it, and I was like, oh, no.
Yeah, he was much quicker than me on this.
No, I don't want to see that. That looks terrible.
Because for those of you who don't know, The Turn of the Screw is a story, was it the 18th century when it was written? It was like, it's an old book.
Yeah, it's very, very turn of the last century.
It's like Gothic horror back when Gothic horror was first being written kind of shit. And it's one of the original, in fact, it probably is the original, Is She Crazy, or are there actually ghost stories?
Yeah, there are a whole bunch of these that were being written at the end of the 18th, beginning of the 20th century.
Like The Haunting.
Call the Cormorant, things like that. A lot of like, is it really a ghost or are people crazy? Yep. That was really popular.
It was right on the brink of when we were starting to get into psychology as like an actual thing that people do and study. Yeah. So, because of that, like the whole, like, oh, maybe all these things that we originally thought was supernatural are actually just people going crazy.
Yeah.
And so we had a lot of books that kind of played with that. And The Turn of the Screw is one of the most famous examples of that. So going into the movie, I was usually like, all right, let's just see this spooky ghost story. And then when I realized it was a Turn of the Screw adaptation, I'm like, okay, adjust expectations. It's going to be a little bit more psychological, a little more is she, isn't she? And then, to my surprise, for about 2/3 of this movie, it was just the generic spooky ghost story I kind of thought I was going into. And then at the end, the flimsy foundation of the movie collapses in on itself and just becomes, instead of a mediocre movie, a flat-out awful movie. But before we get to the spoilers and I talk about what makes this movie so bad, some of the things I did like about the movie, I felt like the actors are all wasted in this movie, but they all do a good job with what they have, which isn't a lot.
Yeah, they didn't have like bullshit actors.
No, we got some solid people in here. We got like Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things.
And It.
We got the chick from the latest Terminator movie, which I haven't seen, but I've heard that she's fine in it.
There seem to be a lot of problems in that last Terminator movie, but the acting doesn't seem to be one of them.
Exactly. The little girl in the movie, just based on the trailer, looks like she was fine, and then seeing the movie, she's one of the best parts of the movie, actually, the little girl. The chemistry between the main actress and the little girl is so good that most of the best scenes in the movie are just them interacting and bonding. Not scary scenes, not like freaky scenes, but just them interacting and bonding as like mother-like figure and little girl work. I think Finn Wolfhard probably has the worst performance in the movie, unfortunately, because he's basically regulated to all spooky kid cliches in horror movies from the last 30 years.
Yeah. He looked like he was playing somewhere between The Good Son and I See Dead People.
Like, yeah, exactly. And he kind of jumps between those two things. Now, there is a thing they were obviously trying to do with him, which I'll go into when we get to the spoilers, but I don't think it worked as well as they wanted it to. I thought some of the early scares were okay. I did think the cinematography was too dark throughout most of the movie to see a lot of the scenes. Like, I get you were trying to go moody. We're in this old ancient house at night, so there's not much lighting, and so you just basically have candlelight and stuff. But like, I never was unable to see anything in the Vavitch, which was completely candlelit.
Totally candlelit, yeah. We knew exactly what was going on.
But in this movie, there were plenty of scenes where I didn't even register what room she was in. Like,
oh. Ooh. Yeah, because, like, well, like, okay, so, like, in the original, like, Turning of the Screw, like, this takes place, taking place in a big house. Yeah, like a fucking manor.
The basic premise is, you have this woman who's basically been hired to teach these two orphan kids, basic, like, teaching shit. Like,
they made them orphans in this one?
Yeah, they're orphans in this one.
Okay.
I forget if they're orphans in the original story, but I do know in the original story they technically have an uncle who isn't in this story.
Yeah, they have a guardian.
Yeah,
you know,
the uncle doesn't exist in this movie. I don't even think they mention him, so I was really confused as to who the guardian actually was in this movie.
Wait, they're orphans, but they live in this fucking Wayne Manor thing?
Yes. My only assumption is that the housekeeper who, like, actually cleans and cooks for them was supposed to be their guardian, but I was really confused as to how she was legally their guardian. Like, I don't...
Yeah, that seems like something you might want to actually put in the movie.
Yeah, that really confused me, but whatever, fine, you just wrote the uncle out of the story, who cares? But, like... It is a small example of some of the sloppy writing in this, though.
Yeah. You don't want people wondering why these two nobody orphans live in this big fucking manor house.
Yeah. Especially since, like, as the plot goes on, you find out that the little girl never leaves. Because she's scared of the gates, because in this version of the story, the mom and dad died while leaving the gates of the house. I don't know how. They never quite explained that. I don't know if it was a car crash or if their car just exploded or something. In my mind, I was just imagining them leaving the gate and the car just goes boom. But they never actually show us or tell us.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what my brain came up with.
And I know why they didn't show us or tell us. They wanted us to keep questioning if the ghosts killed them or something, you know? Like,
right, but I mean, like, that's usually when someone steps out of a gate and then just kind of mysteriously falls over dead.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like, usually showed that kind of thing to establish weirdness.
This little girl doesn't go to school, so she's being homeschooled, which is why the main character is hired in the first place.
Okay.
And much like in the original story, the brother comes back home from boarding school.
Right.
Because he got in trouble. For reasons that the plot explains. Which is from the original story, so that's...
Yeah.
It's totally there. But again, I was really confused as to who their actual guardian was supposed to be. Because ostensibly they act like she's supposed to be their guardian, but not legally their guardian, but supposed to act like their guardian because their housekeeper just coddles them, so I don't know.
Yeah. Like, because in the original, she is what is known as a governess.
Yeah. And
a governess is kind of like your all-purpose, like, nanny, daily instructor type person. It's a role that really doesn't exist anymore.
No.
You know,
that's why in this she's like, that's the other thing about this movie that I didn't understand. This movie isn't set in ye old times. This movie is set in the 90s. Like, it makes a big point that the movie opens up with the death of Kurt Cobain as, like, the beginning of the story. But here's the thing. I didn't see anything in this movie that required it to be set in the 90s, so I was confused as to why they made that choice. Because even if you're going to go like, oh, she doesn't have cell phones or, like, a laptop in this, I'm like, okay, but she's constantly, like, calling her friends on the phone and shit, and, like, so it's not like she's cut off from the rest of the world.
Yeah. Like, how to put it, just having people answer those old, like, rotary dial things usually gets the job done.
Yeah.
Where you're like, oh, okay, it's sometime before internet.
You know, like this, the same idea could have literally just been done by just going like, yeah, we don't have really bad reception, but we have these old phones, and it would have been fine.
Yeah, exactly.
For some reason, they decided to set this in the 90s, and for the life of me, I can't figure out why. But whatever, it's set in the 90s. It doesn't even use much 90s music except for like when the son is playing his guitar.
Yeah, but I can't imagine that the story is very much enhanced by having 90s-isms in it.
Not really, because for the most part, they aren't really there. You're in the spooky ghost house, so there's not going to be much 90s.
Right. You'd probably be able to get more scare factor out of setting it like the 60s or something.
Oh, yeah. If you set it even further back in time, you probably add more of a creepy factor to it, but I don't know.
Yeah, but like, I don't know how to put it. I'm like, 90s? We were all there. I'm not sure that's fucking scary.
Yeah, I don't ask me. I was confused as shit as to why that was happening. So yeah, and let's see. Movie's too dark. The acting was pretty good. It was pretty mediocre till the 2/3. What else did I want to cover before the spoilers? Oh yeah. The ghost effects in this movie are awful.
Oh.
I'm not talking about like the early stuff where it's like, oh, is it a ghost? Is it a mannequin or whatever? I'm talking about when you get towards the end of the movie and you start seeing like the actual ghosts appearing. It's this weird attempt at creating these like blurry ghosts that kind of look like what something would look like if you were looking at it while you're in sleep paralysis. But the problem with that is that you don't get a good look at them, so you can't even tell what's going on.
Wait. So they give you actual ghosts in this movie?
Yeah, like these spooky spectral things that like have like obviously were created by a mixture of CGI and multiple layering.
Right.
But it creates this weird blurry mess that you don't get a good look at. And plus the film's already too dark to tell where you are half the time.
Ooh. Well, why would they show you the ghosts? That kind of, like, if you show someone a ghost, then you have to undo that if you're going to do Turn to the Screw.
Yeah, well, we'll get to the end. We'll get to the end in a minute. And I guess the last thing I would want to say is, since we probably should go into the spoilers at this point, yeah, I would skip this one and wait for the Netflix adaptation that Mike Flanagan is doing, because I guarantee, just based on The Haunting of Hill House, that it's going to be a way better adaptation than this.
Well, yeah, because this has got all the things that Turning to the Screw is all the things that Mike Flanagan tends to excel at. You know, people going crazy, messing with perception. Yeah. You know, like, it's what the whole story's about.
Yeah, like, this movie's only good if you want to see a really bad attempt at creating a Blumhouse-style horror movie. But again, a really bad attempt at that.
Wait, they tried to make a Blumhouse story out of the Turning of the Screw? Ooh.
That then tries to be Turning of the Screw at the end and falls apart when it does that. So, hard pass. And, fuck, let's just move on to the spoilers.
All right, let me guess. So they make the ghost real, right?
They make the ghost real, and then they go back on that, because they make the ghost real.
What?
And they have an entire third act of this movie in which the ghosts start attacking and like killing the nanny, and then she tries to get the kids and get them an escape, and it's like this whole backstory that is somewhat from the original story of the fact that like there were two house workers, one of which had her old job, and one of which was like the groundskeeper. Yeah. And the two of them had like an affair, but one of them killed the other, and so like their ghosts are haunting the place. Which some of that stuff is from the original story. Some of the details are changed, but the idea is there. And these are the two ghosts that she's supposedly seeing throughout the movie.
Okay.
But so she gets the kids, she escapes, and then as she's escaping, the movie reverts back like an entire half hour and then tells you that this was that entire last third of the movie was a hallucination that she was having while looking at some pictures that her mom sent her. Because here's the thing, at the beginning of the movie, they tease a little bit about the Turn of the Screw elements, because they have her mom be in a mental hospital that she goes and visits. Okay. And her mom does like all these like paintings and stuff of creepy shit. And so around 2/3 into the movie, the mom sends her some creepy paintings and she looks at them. And then the movie goes on. Okay. And then the movie reverts back to that scene that was 2/3 in, revealing that, she had just hallucinated all that from looking at the pictures, and that, oh, she might have what her mom has. And someone even notes to her that, like, oh, like, better be careful that what your mom has isn't genetic.
So you're telling me that not only do they make the ghosts real, they also make the insanity real by going back on it?
Well, here's the thing. They go back on the ghost being real. So now there were no ghosts, because she goes in and tries to talk to the kids. And so for the first time, you get a scene that's from the kids' point of view, ostensibly, where she's just freaking out about things that aren't there. And the kids are like, let's get away from her. She's scary and dangerous. That what they're scared of is her and not ghosts.
So...
And then we get a scene of her after they walk out of the room where she hallucinates being in a pool on a bed with her mom going crazy, and then credits.
Wait. She's on a pool, in a pool on a bed?
Yeah. Like an empty pool. Like an empty swimming pool.
Oh my
with
God.
a bed. And I think they were trying to borrow imagery, because at the beginning of the movie, the mom's like in like this empty swimming pool drawing shit, so they were trying to bring that back, but... So did they completely like remove the whole part of the plot where the kids might also be faking everything? They have that element there, but then at the end they make it clear that they weren't.
Oh, okay.
At the end they make it clear that she's crazy.
Oh. Well,
Number one. Number two, they also remove from the story the kids dying.
What?
They removed that from the story, which to me was one of the most powerful parts at the end of the original story, was that she seems to come to and she's holding the dead son in her arms, and she doesn't know if the ghost killed him or if she did in like a hallucinogenic stupor. And that's not in this movie. Because they make it, again, very clear that the ghosts weren't real. She was crazy.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But here's a couple problems I had with this. Number one, this movie opens with a prologue. And the prologue has the person who had her previous job running from the house scared, only for a spooky ghost to get her.
Well, that kind of answers the... Wait, so what was supposed to have happened there?
Yeah, exactly. What was supposed to have happened there? Was she not got by a spooky ghost? Was this some dream the main character had, but you didn't tell us she was dreaming? Like, what the fuck? On top of that, there are multiple scares throughout this movie that are not scares for her. They're scares for us. Like, for example, there's a point in which she's walking through a dark room, and then there's a scary face behind her. She doesn't see it. She doesn't even know it's there. She doesn't acknowledge it. But we're supposed to be scared of it. There's another scene in which she's in front of a mirror, and she's bending down to wash her face, and a spooky ghost face appears in the mirror, and then disappears when she looks up.
Is this actually a Blumhouse movie? Because this sounds
it's not.
bad for a...
It's a DreamWorks and Amblin movie, apparently.
Oh my God. So it's a shitty version of a bad Blumhouse movie.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I was about to say, they've fucking done some bullshit, but it's usually not that bad.
And then the most egregious scene in which there's a scene in which the little girl, again, is scared to leave the house because her parents died right while leaving the gate of the house. How? I have no fucking clue. Car crash, whatever. So she's scared to leave the house, but they want to go into town to get a new fish because one of the birds ate her fish. So she's like, okay.
Okay, buy new goldfish.
Buy
whatever.
new fish. But the little girl's scared, so her brother pretends to talk to someone in the mirror, and it's just like, see, my friend in the mirror said he'll protect us. And you're like, okay. So you're like, oh, he has an imaginary friend. He's just creating this imaginary friend to protect her.
Yeah. He's being weird, like the kid in the book was being weird. Yeah.
So everyone leaves the scene to go get into the car, and then after they leave the scene, the camera pans to the mirror, and then there's a creepy guy in it looking, and he turns his head, and you're like, okay. There was literally no one there to see that but us, the audience. So if you want her to be crazy, why do you have all these scares that are for us?
Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
It would make most sense if this movie was filmed a little bit more subjectively from her point of view exclusively.
Well, yeah, because the reason you have a third person perspective is to establish what happens when no one else is looking.
Yeah, exactly.
Which
is what this movie does a lot. And so I'm like, okay, you have all those things. So are you trying to have your cake and eat it too? Are you trying to have this definitive ending where she's just crazy? but you want us to still question whether there's ghosts, even though that ending makes it pretty clear that there's not. Like, what do you want? On top of that, this is also an element that's in the book that's been debated, so I'll give it a little bit of slack for this, but it also has that she clearly knows what the two people looked like, even though she'd never seen them before.
Okay, and is that brought up as like a weird supernatural thing, or?
It's not really brought up, it's just something I noticed.
Oh.
Because she's seeing them in the windows and the mirrors and reflections and stuff like that, and then later she sees a picture of them and it's like, oh, this was the groundskeeper, this was this.
Oh, okay, so they do it like that. It's like she has a perfect.
But here's the thing, I think they might have gone. I think that might have been part of the reversal thing. So they might not have looked like that, and that's just what she assumed they looked like. So who knows?
Oh,
but
great.
again, they have so many scares that are just for us and not for her that.
I have to ask, are the scares any good?
No.
Oh.
Like one that I thought would have been good had they filmed it better was like her diving into the pool thinking that one of the kids drowned, and it turns out to be this porcelain doll. But you can't tell it's a porcelain doll until she gets out of the water, and I'm like, no, it would have been way creepier if she dived into the water, sees the little girl, and then tries to grab her, picks her up, and then realizes it's the porcelain doll, and you get a good look at it, and then the porcelain doll grabs her. And then
Yeah.
It would have been a much more effective scene, but the way it's filmed, you're not supposed to know that she sees it and sees that it's a porcelain doll until she gets out of the water. And I'm like, well, that was ineffective. That was just poorly executed. And there's a lot of stuff like that throughout this movie. The creepiest stuff in the movie, I'll give him this. The creepiest stuff in the movie is literally Finn Wolfhard playing is he creepy or is he not kid. Like doing shit like her waking up and he's standing over her bed. That's some of the creepiest stuff in the movie.
Yeah, that's inherently weird.
Him creeping on her and saying that, like, my invisible friend says your tattoo is sexy. Stuff like that was way creepier than any of the attempts at scares.
Okay.
And again, that's because this is relying on the strength of the actors and not the actual filmmaking.
Well, yeah, because this filmmaking sounds like it doesn't know what it's trying to accomplish.
No, it's very... at best, it's meh. At worst, it's just awful.
like this was what I was afraid of. This is why when I realized it was a Turning of the Screw adaptation, I was like, nope, I'm out. No way. Because like this sounds worse than I was dreading.
Yeah, and it is pretty fucking bad. It's definitely like right now, it's the first month, but right now it's the worst movie I've seen so far this year. And even though I've only done 2 vlogs, I've been going to the theater like multiple times a week.
Yeah, it's just not always horror movies.
There's not always horror movies, so I have no place for them here. Like how I don't really have a place on this channel to talk about 1917.
Yeah, or The Irishman,
or The Irishman.
You know,
movies that I love but aren't really part of this channel's forte. Occasionally I'll break that to talk about Marvel movies, just because A, they're popular, so they get views, and B, I love them enough that I can talk about them for an hour. So
yeah. You know, but I mean, oh god, no, this sounds bad.
Yeah,
this is, like I said, it sounds worse than I was expecting. I
went into it with low expectations, and I was disappointed.
Ooh, and we're kind of we're masters at liking bullshit.
Yeah, I like a lot of bullshit. There's a lot of movies that I would probably say are C-level movies that I fucking love. This movie's not a C-level movie. This movie, at best, is trying to be a C-level movie and then becomes an F.
Ooh.
As it progresses.
Ooh. Well, I mean, that twist sounds terrible.
Oh, it's awful. It's awful. I'm like, here's the thing. Had they not done that twist and just had it like be the ghosts are real and she escapes, it wouldn't have been the best movie, but I would at least have given the movie like a C-. I would have been like, all right, fine.
Yeah, it would have been like not complete waste of time, not complete dog shit.
You know, but with that ending and with the way that ending is, here's the other thing. If you wanted to treat the her being crazy like a twist, okay, fine. Many movies have done that. Some have done it well. Some have done it not well. The Fight Club's probably the best example of it done well. Fine. All right, fine. But the way they handled it was especially unsatisfying, you know? Like, oh, she's in a pool and her mom's crazy now, and now we're credits. Okay. Symbology.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. One thing I do want to commend is that the main actress, despite the shittiness of this movie, would have been great in this film with better material. Like, there's a lot of little things I like that she does throughout the movie. Like one of the subtle hints that she's dealing with an anxiety disorder throughout the entire movie is her picking at like the tops of her nails like this.
Right.
There's like 2 moments in the movie in which the filmmaking actually highlights that and like actually does like a nice little close up of her doing it. But for most of the movie, she's doing it subtly, like while scenes are going. And I noticed that, and I'm like, I really wish the filmmakers had realized what they had with this actress and actually highlighted some of those things and done a lot more subjective filmmaking from her point of view, because I think this movie would be way more effective if we were feeling the same anxiety she was.
Yeah, probably.
You know?
Probably, which would be very appropriate for Turn of the Screw.
You know, if we actually had moments where she herself is questioning her own sanity, because...
Yeah,
that might have been effective, especially given her mom and where she came from.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, I'm sorry, my brain is going like the whole climax of the movie is the whole like exorcism, like scene where the kid dies and you're not sure if the kid was ever actually possessed.
Exactly.
You know, that's the whole crux of the horror of the Turning of the Screw, because everything and why it's called the Turning of the Screw is because you start from a very normal place, and by the end of it, you've got this extreme fucking answer.
I'm curious, is the phrase "screw loose" like a takeoff of that movie of that book title?
I don't know. I don't know which one came first. You know, but there's definitely like
there's some sort of connection.
There's definitely a connection there. You know, like, but that the idea was just like. The idea of the turning of the screw is that you turn, and then it just snaps. Yeah. You know, it's the whole idea, you know, which is how that whole story is paced. Yep. So doing the like, you know, like ghost scare sounds like a terrible idea.
Oh yeah. I would have loved to have seen a more psychological take on this movie, or if not, just embrace the ghosts a little more. But this weird half measure they try where it's like, oh, we're embracing the ghost, but no, pull back, twist. It's just handled so badly.
Yeah. You gotta like, you can't do the standard like, you know, scare on every 10th page with the Turning of the Screw. You gotta Hitchcock it.
Now, if you wanted to do the twist, but at least like make the scares a little bit more effective and make them scares for her, not for us. Yeah. You might have been able to pull this off a little better, but
yeah. You know, she's slowly, like, going
and
nuts.
also not had a prologue which established someone else dealing with the ghosts.
Yeah, like, I don't... Yeah. I don't know. Why do you think everyone's doing... Why do you think so many movies are doing that lately?
I don't know. I think someone just had the idea of, like, oh, spooky ghost stories are in. Let's adapt this, but do it in the Blumhouse style. But we're not Blumhouse, so we're only going to be so good at this. Yeah. And let's try to do that. And then I think I was looking it up, and like this movie had like a bunch of production trouble. Like this movie was like done in 2018 and then like sat for a while. And you can tell.
Oh my God. It's like we only released this because Wolfhard was in it.
And you can tell because Finn Wolfhard in this movie looks at least 2 years younger than he does in the Ghostbusters trailer for the movie that's coming out later this year. Oh, no. So you can tell this movie sat for a while and probably had reshoots and rewrites up the ass.
Yeah. And a real young actor isn't going to be able to fucking handle that as well, because like you're sitting there going like, we did this scene and I don't know what to do.
Speaking of him, there's an element of this movie that I thought could have been handled way better, and that's this. Okay, so the idea is she's unsure of him, not sure what to think of him, is not sure if he's like fucking with her and all this stuff. But really, he's just lashing out because his parents are dead. That could have been handled better if you didn't just rely on spooky kid ghost cliches. Yes. Because the spooky kid ghostly cliches aren't the way a kid who's acting out acts.
Correct. Yeah, I don't know how to say it. Like, a kid who's acting out doesn't act like Sixth Sense kid.
Yep. Like, the best scene in this movie with him, from an acting standpoint, is the point in which she's trying to talk to him and he's just banging on his drums to get her to go away. That felt like a thing that a really angry kid who doesn't want to deal with authority would do, you know? Like,
Yeah, he's angry, but he doesn't really quite understand why.
Exactly.
You know, but, oh, jeez. Well, man, I don't, sounds like, this sucks like Christian rock.
It does. And speaking of Christian rock, where can they find you, Satanic Jackula?
How the fuck does that even... Okay, well, all right. You can find me on Twitch. I stream throughout the week and on every Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, I stream, and also every Sunday at 9 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, I stream on Twitch. You can follow me on the Twitter at _Jackula. I'm occasionally on Instagram at Satanic Jackula, and on to you.
And you all know me. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Twitch. You can find me on Facebook. Just look up Blood Splattered Cinema or The Horror Guru, and I'll be there. And while you're here on my YouTube channel, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to ring that notification bell so that you're notified of my videos immediately upon their upload. And if you want to help me directly continue doing the show, then be sure to donate to my Patreon page. And remember, if you decide to go the Patreon route, even $1 a month can go a long way. And with all that said, I'm going to go see that Hansel and Gretel movie next week. The one that's like Hansel and Gretel by way of the Vivitch. I'm hoping it's good, but I'm worried because you're trying to do a Vitch-style Hansel and Gretel story, but making it PG-13, and that worries me.
I have a feeling we'll be doing this again next week.
You might see us next week doing this again, or maybe I'll be telling him about an even better movie. We'll see. So see you next week with Hansel and Gretel, or Gretel and Hansel. It has a weird name, but whatever. And peace out, my fellow gorehounds, and I'll catch y'all later.
Horror gets popular again. Here comes that bullshit wagon, man.
Here's the bullshit wagon. Oh, it's all over my face. Bye, guys.